All right, guys. Well, welcome back to the Raised Hunting Podcast. We're glad you guys are here. I'm joined again today by two very special guests, Warren and Easton. I got it in again.
That's what she said.
God dang it.
Starts right from the beginning. You can't do that.
Freaking moron.
Okay.
This is why we have to mark explicit on Spotify.
All right, we're good.
We're going to start again?
Yeah.
You dumb.
Okay. Are you guys ready?
Yep.
All right, guys. Welcome back to the Raised Hunting Podcast.
I knew somebody was going to do another something. That was good.
You've got to beep those, and you've got to put them in. My orders, you're doing it. I'm risking the whole company on it. It's worth it.
All right, guys. Welcome back to the Raised Hunting Podcast. And today I got two special guests who are here all the time with me. My two boys, Easton and Warren, are both here. And we're going to be talking about shed hunting, and particularly some do's and don'ts, some why we think there's some strategies to shed hunting and why we do what we do. Easton looks for a different reason than Warren does, and I look for a different reason than both of them. So anyhow, it's just a fun time of year to be out looking for sheds and doing that kind of stuff. So,
and we also, as you can tell, are mid-remodel of our podcast studio.
Yeah.
So we have half of our wall done, but we needed to get this out to you guys. So we just said, screw it. We'll just throw everything in there for
under construction.
Yeah, or midway. Yep.
Which everybody that's done Easton's deal and send in photos, we've not forgot about you. Once we finish this, they will be getting a dedicated area back here.
Yes, so if you are, I know there's been people that have messaged or have texted me or something. They're like, oh, I need to go do that. You need to do it. And what I mean is you need to send me a picture, send me the story of whatever the relativeness to our podcast is, whether you listened to it that day or we gave you a tip that helped you be successful. Send us a picture, send us the story, send it to contact@raisedhunting.com, and we are going to put them on the wall. We won't put the stories on the wall, but we'll probably have a podcast where we'll go through quite a few of the stories.
You would take someone that just listens to the podcast all the time
For
and
sure.
has a deer. I mean, so we're not.
I've already had some of them do that.
Yeah,
but
that just said, hey, I listen all the time. Not necessarily did you get a direct line to your deer. That doesn't have to be that.
But I would like to know if you did or not, because we surprisingly have had a lot of people say that your podcast gave me this idea and it actually went out and we did it. So I really want to know those stories, and we will also take the other stories that are just good stories from you guys. Even if you're not successful, just a good photo.
Warren, we got any shout-outs today?
We do. On Apple Podcast, I believe it's Wise Guys. They have a great spelling to it, though. They said these podcasts are always entertaining, informative, and real. The exchange between you all is down to earth, fun, family ribbing, and a great mix of jabbing each other, poking fun at dad, and the way a father and sons bond, relate, and enjoy the outdoors together, and still deliver great insights, information, and tips. Well done, guys. Appreciate you, Wise Guys.
You are a wise guy.
Oh, that was a dad joke.
Yeah, it was, but it was a good one.
Coming from a
Doolittle 25. These podcasts never seem to disappoint. Gotta love how passionate you guys are with every topic you guys talk about. Warren's devil advocate points of view crack me up. Easton should have been a lawyer or something. He can argue and bring up valid points. Love the poaching one y'all did. Keep it up, guys. My 45-minute drive to work at 3:30 a.m. goes way faster when I listen to a race hunting podcast. Also, I think you should bring on Mama Holder for at least one episode. I know my wife would tune in, but that one for sure. That is a good idea. We should do that. And then the YouTube cult. You guys have been rocking. We really appreciate everybody that's gone over to the Raised Hunting podcast. And so I got to give a few of them shout-outs because they've been lighting it up over there. TF Hunter 365, appreciate you. Gary Bonnell, Travis Huddleworth, he's always on there, and he brought up the idea of leaving a voicemail so they could give a little bit more in-depth questions, which we've debated trying to figure out how to do like a call-in before. So, yes, we are absolutely open to that idea.
I'm working on that currently, so bear with us.
Jake DeLuge, he's a man. Brandon Brown, 96. There's a whole bunch. So Jeremy Rupsick, he's always on there. But there's a few for today. And then I'm just going to give you two things real quick. We're going to have something really cool coming here in the very near future. And the way that we're going to give away the first one ever, nobody's ever had one of what this is, ever. So the only way to do it is you got to go leave a review. Got to go leave those reviews now. We're not gonna get it, and then you get to enter in the review. You got to have already left a review, and that's how you're gonna be entered. I'd recommend doing it on Spotify. We appreciate you guys. I'd recommend doing it on Apple because there we can take your handle or whatever you want to call it and put you in a bucket.
Yeah.
So, but it's gonna be super cool, and I think you're gonna like it.
Or if you do it on Spotify or whatever, just type in your review. Wait, you can't even type a review.
No, that's what I'm telling you.
I was going to say, I thought it was just all anonymous.
Or they could screenshot it and send us an
Yeah.
email if you want. What is it? Just Raised Hunting Podcast now, right?
Yeah. It's Raised Hunting Podcast.
Is that the one you want? Or contact at Raised Hunting?
Just keep it the same so I don't confuse you guys. Contact@raisedhunting.com. So send us a screenshot if you're a Spotify guy.
Say it one more time because I think
Contact@raisedhunting.com. If you want to contact us, contact@raisedhunting.com. That was contact@raisedhunting.com.
That's
we look forward to hearing from you.
CONTACT at symbol RAISEDHUNTING.com.
Contact@raisedhunting.com.
Or you can call 1-800-CONTACT@raisedhunting.com.
Did you guys take your medication today?
I did.
You must have taken a double dose.
I did.
Maybe. Oh, Lord. There's his third dose.
Wolf of Wall Street. Except my are a lot uglier.
Yeah, they think this is all sawdust. Little do they know it's cocaine.
No, because otherwise we'd be way more loaded than we are. We better dive into this.
We might ought to start at some point.
I'm ready. We had housekeeping items.
Okay. Well,
So,
like I said, today we're going to talk about shed hunting, and we're kind of I would say we're in the thick of it now, wouldn't you?
the thick of it.
So
This is
technically
early.
still kind of on the front of it, but
it's been good so far. We've had we've been out doing some shed hunting.
I will say my prediction, I think, may have been correct, unless we just don't normally spend that much time going as much as I feel like we have this early. I had the theory that they would drop earlier this year. I feel like we've found a significant amount of sheds for February 2nd, or you guys have.
I would agree.
You're 20-something, aren't you?
Well, if you count everything that he's picked up.
Yeah, that seems high to me. Very high. Normally it's like mid-February, late February.
Yeah, although one of the best days I've ever had was Super Bowl weekend, next weekend.
Mm-hmm. So mid.
Mom and I picked up like 9 or 10
Yep.
one day.
Which I think could be a bad sign if there's that many deer that are they really are dropping early.
They're stressed.
Which they probably are. Yeah, it would mean a lot of them are pretty stressed.
They'll be all right, though. They got some time to recoup.
So for those of you that aren't aware, Iowa was hit by not one, but 2 blizzards. Back to back, they were like 4 days apart. And what ended up happening, we had no winter prior to that, though.
Yeah, it's been warm.
It was nice. It was in the like mid-40s, and I mean, we didn't have anything on the ground. So at that point, it was like, boy, the sheds are going to be kind of scattered because it doesn't congregate the deer to the food. But then, boy, when it hit hard. But it was only been here like 2 weeks. But I mean, real cold, went down to below zero temperatures, wind was blowing. We got about 2 feet of snow all in those 2 storms, and it blew in 10, 15-foot drifts in some places. So, but then it has turned back to what it was and even more. Like today, I think we're going to be hitting 50-some degrees. So all the snow is coming off the ground, and so we've decided we wanted to get into some areas, and that's kind of one of the things is, or one of the questions is, do you go early or do you wait? And I'm asking you guys that question. I mean, and I think I know what my answer is, but I guess I'd like to hear what your guys' answer is. So you got a farm that you're able to hunt. Let's just say it's 100 acres, and you want to go shed hunt it. And so for all of our viewers out there, when do you go?
Are you the only one hunting it?
You're the only one hunting it.
That has permission.
The only one that has
own it or
permission, whether
whatever.
you own it or you have permission on it.
I wait. I wait till I have a feeling that they're all going to be dropped.
Why are you waiting?
Just so I don't put any more stress on them. I don't bump them somewhere where they may stay for a couple days or something and drop their antlers elsewhere or just go to the next food. Theoretically, I would think that if I go in there early and I bust some of them, they're going to come back because if they're there, there's food most likely. So I wouldn't be too worried about them coming back at some point. I just don't want them to leave at the prime time for them to be dropping their antlers, and then they drop their antlers somewhere else that I don't find them.
Right.
So I might as well just wait till the only downfall is depending on what chews on them.
That I was going to say, well, I'll bring up mine in a minute. Go ahead, Warren.
I'd be pretty much the same. I mean, it'd be a little situational based. If there was a really big deer that I knew was in there or something and I had pictures of him dropped, I probably don't care about everybody else. I'm going to go look for it. Unless there is a situation where it's a lot of snow and stuff, and I think I'm going to really stress the deer out. Because I go early. I mean, I definitely go early. But, like, when there was all this snow on the ground, even public stuff, I wouldn't even go to that, even though I'm sure other people probably did. But I just felt as though when they are that stressed, I'm not trying to kill deer,
right?
From it. I'm trying to hopefully pick up their antlers. And in that time, it was vital enough for their survival that I wouldn't want to be pushing them off food sources or things like that really stressed them out, which honestly, they probably would run a few hundred yards and come right back because they have to have it, but that doesn't mean I want to put them through that.
Right. So you guys both, and I agree to an extent. I'm not going to push them. You brought up if it was a big deer that you knew was dropped, and that was one of the things I was going to say is this is a time to be using trail cameras and cellular trail cameras that are even better for shed hunting. Meaning you can see what's going on. Does it look like your bucks are dropped or are they not? The best thing in the world that you can have happen is half of your big target buck shows up and he's got one side left. Well, that tells you, because sometimes he may show up and you're not positive it's the same deer if he doesn't have some characteristic double throat patch or busted ear or cut ear or something like that.
Yeah.
You may not know for sure that that's him. But so anyhow, the other one is, like you mentioned or just started to mention, was we have the one farm that we walked the other day. We walked it intentionally to try to get in there and pick these sheds up before the freaking squirrels eat them. And even though we were in there, what was that, February 2nd or 3rd?
2nd, yeah.
2nd. February 2nd, the squirrels had still eaten. We found 12 antlers, and out of the 12 antlers, 11 of them were chewed on.
Yeah.
And, they
were fresh, too. I mean, you could see blood on their pedicle and stuff, and
right.
Annoying.
So let's talk a little bit about strategies, though. So how do you pick where you're going to go? I mean, like I just talked about that. We went to that farm and we particularly honed in on the timber, and walked the timber to try to pick up sheds that are in the timber because we know the squirrels are eating those first before they get to the ones out in the fields. But they'll even get to some of them out in the wide open. It doesn't seem to matter. One thing, though, that I did notice the other day, and I forgot to mention to you guys, I have a picture of it on my phone. I found a dead buck that was just laying there, a small one, like a 90-inch deer. Not a single chew mark on it anywhere. And I wonder if it was an EHD deer, and because it seems like when they die of sickness or something like that, the squirrels won't even eat the antlers.
I think it's all the time. Seems like they never eat deadheads for whatever reason.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, as much as we saw them all chewed, this one was not chewed at all.
I've never paid attention to that. I have one deadhead that I found that was chewed some, but it was minimal and it was old.
Yeah,
that big one.
Yeah,
but he was that was probably like a 3-year-old, probably 3 years old deadhead, but there was only like that much chewed off of it on his beam, and I found sheds in there that were chewed worse than that. So that is odd.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've never even connected those two dots.
I somewhat wonder if they chew on them earlier, meaning like as soon as it's fallen off the deer's head, because like some of those other ones that were chewed, you could see blood in them, not like running blood, but a red pigment.
There's
you know,
more nutrients in it.
that's what I'm saying. Is I wonder if it's a flavor thing or more minerals or something to that effect.
Something in a shed that actually makes them target a shed.
Yeah, well, and
as opposed to it's still stuck to the head.
Well, yeah, maybe that, or for whatever reason, like if one makes it for a few months and it gets dried out, that then there's no point in them eating it anymore. I don't know.
So basically, if you can somehow get like a dump truck of corn and stuff to distract your squirrels for about a month, you could get to the point where they're not going to go to your sheds because they won't be as fresh.
Well, you want to know an interesting thing too, though? I did this as an experiment once. I threw a shed out up there that we'd already found, put a camera on it, and couldn't get a squirrel to eat it.
You already touched it.
Well, it's not like a squirrel to me.
Maybe they
would doubt
can
a squirrel
smell
would
it.
care that much.
They're like a bird, and if you touch the baby, they won't come back.
I don't know. I would think that it's probably more maybe because it was dried out or something that it wasn't super fresh. I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that either.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about strategy, unless you had something else to add to that.
I was just gonna say we could go into shed etiquette, but we can do that after we go over strategies.
Okay. So we target a farm. Let's just say you got a new place. I know what Warren's number one answer is going to be, but what's the first thing that you're looking for when you want to go find sheds?
Sign.
I think more than sign is food.
Well, I think that's an interesting question because I think you
it
need to think
depends
of
on
what
where you
is
live,
the food.
too.
So, for instance, I think that during, which I was trying to think, I don't think we found a single shed in a field yet.
Laying out in the wide open field?
In a bean field, cornfield, alfalfa field.
Well, I haven't looked at any either.
I mean, we did the other day.
As we drove over to get to the timber, yeah.
Yeah, and I think my thought on that may be, and then the 11 I found yesterday, not a single one was it. There was one kind of in a field, but it's not a food field. It's just somewhere that they're traveling. But I don't think that those deer during that big storm were going into fields, because I drove around a whole bunch trying to see if there was deer out there, and there wasn't. I think it was too much work for them to try to dig through 2 feet of snow to get to beans or get to corn or anything, and so they were eating shrubs and browse.
Yeah, that's what I was saying in our hay video that we did on YouTube of putting bales out for them and stuff. The most healthy thing for them right now is like limbs and twigs and everything, and your woody browse is what they're eating when it's very difficult survival. They're not, I mean, yeah, you'll find them digging up in the snow and stuff, but what's easy for them is like all the little buds and twigs and stuff that are on trees.
Well, I like it when it's like that. I mean, it's not the best for the deer, but when it's all they've been eating, for most places, you're going to have a lot. Now you're not having to compete with the guy that has standing beans or some other kind of ag. I mean, sure, if he has standing beans, he's still going to have deer loaded in there because the chances of the snow being over top of those is probably small. But the deer that traditionally would always be going to a food source, and so they're always going to go to the neighbor that has some corn, or the farmer did a crappy job or whatever it is. They're not. They're staying in that timber, and they're staying on those places where there is good woody browse. And I think that that's a big, like where I found all the sheds yesterday, I walk that every year, that's something I do think is really interesting, is I could walk this place every year, and unless somebody's beat me to it, there is a shed within 10 yards of the same spot for like 4 years running now, which is weird to me.
Yeah, I never find them in the same spot.
We do all the time. Like maybe not quite that close
of an area,
but they're in the same general vicinity usually all the time. So I thought that was crazy, and then I found 11 sheds. I've never found more than like 2 or 3, and I found 11, and I think that that's because those deer there was like some hedge apple trees and stuff. They were just yarded up in there because that was the only or easiest available food, and so there was just way more deer in there than there typically would be.
Yeah, because the day before that we found 12, but and I would tell anyone that if you're a first timer getting ready to go out and do some shed hunting, be prepared to put miles on. We do not want to make it sound like that we are gurus at shed hunting and we walk out and every 50 yards we're finding a shed.
Well, I've only found one shed this year, and I've walked like 10 miles, 8 or 10 miles.
Right.
I would tell you miles for piles is bullshit. Because I tried it one year where I didn't concern myself that much with like focusing on, is this a good spot? And I just figured, there's deer here. Is there a lot of deer here? There's deer here. And I'll catch one that on the in-between place or whatever. And I walked like 300 miles and I found 50 some antlers. That's terrible. And then of those 50, like probably 80% of them were in little groups where I'd found 2 or 3 at a time. So I think that's stupid. You go put on miles in the wrong stuff and it's not going to do you any good. Now, maybe to learn and figure out where they are and make sure that there's enough deer sign there and that the deer are there, yeah, that could be worth it. But just covering as much ground as you possibly can could be a lot of wasted time.
Absolutely. But at the same time, I think you would agree, you still got to put a lot of miles in the places that have good potential.
Yeah.
I mean, zigzag everything. It's not like, I think I noticed one of the things the other day when we were walking, I was kind of paying attention so that I would have some information for this podcast. And that is, I noticed that it's better to be at the bottom of a hill looking up than it is to be at the top of a hill looking down.
Yeah, I would rather look up it.
And the reason I think is because you're closer to the ground. And then you have the chance of the antlers sticking up if they're sticking up, where when you're looking down on it, it's all ground. So that was one thing that I like walking the bottom of. But the other one is that don't look too far out. I think that's a problem that we get into is we're scanning at 20 yards, and you need to be scanning at like 5 and 10 yards, because I don't know how many times I've walked up and then find a shed laying 10, 15 feet from me that I never saw until I got right there, or turn around and look behind me and there's one there.
Yeah.
And we proved the other day, I walked by one that you found, and I think you found one that he walked by.
Well,
Nick did. Nick found mine.
Yeah.
I did it to myself 3 times yesterday. Found a pretty nice antler right away. Then Liz and I worked the rest of this hillside, and I found another antler down there. And anytime I do find an antler, I make myself stop and I scan. I look all around to see if the match is laying right there close. Do that. Try to see it. Don't see it. Go and I'm stepping back over the fence, and I look back, and there it is. It was within like 8 feet of me, and I'm like, what the frick? Now it blended in pretty well, but I mean, I definitely just looked right over top of it, and then I go back and pick that one up. Well, then we tried to go find the other side to the first one after we'd found a couple other sheds, and we'd gone down, and then we looped. So now, before we went down, now we're coming back up, and I found one that Alyssa and I both walked right by, which that one wasn't a real big one. It was kind of under some grass. It was a year old, so that one wasn't that crazy. But then another one, like I was like, there's no way. I look over and I was like, how the frick did I miss that antler? Because that one, it was the same thing from the first one. It was within 10 yards. On my tracker, according to Onyx, it was 5.6. So I was cussing up a storm. Like, what the frick? I'm blind. I got to go to the eye doctor. But when I came back the other way, it was like a sore thumb. So I never really put much weight in the whole, walk it from different angles. It's like, I'll just take enough time that I cover it. Well, now I'm starting to really believe that, and I'm thinking I'm not going to walk. I'm going to walk faster and cover way more of it with my feet and only be looking out 5-6 yards and be disciplined. And then if I have to look out, then I'm going to make myself stop, because that's my problem is I get too excited of looking out in front of me, and I'm pretty sure I'm just cruising by a whole crap load of sheds.
I tried that whole going back and forth thing last year, and I was sold on it.
Yeah.
Very quickly, because I found that's why I was so irritated when we went in the other day, because that same farm last year, I cleaned house. I think I had like 8 or 9 myself in like the same sections we were walking, and that kind of stuff is like, it's open woods, but it's got a lot of undergrowth, so it's pretty thick for you guys if you just to imagine that. So you can't really see super far. I mean, you can see through the woods, but seeing on the ground is a whole nother story. And I did that. I would zigzag certain places. And then if I ever found one or where I'm going down one trail and then I try to cut back down that trail like 5 yards away, I found one or two by walking one way and then just going back to make sure I'm going at a different angle by it, and found like in a row on the back on the second half going back to look that way.
Yeah.
And then I went actually and looked. I was like, okay, how hard would this have been for me to see it from the first angle? And it was tough. But when I came back, it was like, oh, that's easy.
I don't know if it would make. I feel like with a big antler though, I don't think it could make that big a difference. Maybe it does, but I would think
it also depends on where it's dropped. I mean, if it's dropped like the one Nick found, the only reason I didn't find that is because I didn't walk at the right next to it. I went up and around the little pile of stuff, and I was only 15 yards away, and it was open. I should be able to see that. But since he walked there, basically, or whatever angle he walked it versus what I did, he saw it no problem.
Well, I think the only way I think you'd miss a big one like that would be if it's tines down. Otherwise, some of them, like a hammer antler, it should be pretty hard to miss that one.
So what would you say that the percentage is of tines up to tines down that we find?
Oh, a clue.
This year, all of them but one that I spotted out of the mule with you and Nick.
Was tines down?
Yeah, kind of by the gate. No, that was the only one that was tines down.
All the rest of them been tines up.
All the rest have been tines up.
See, I feel like it's like 70 to 80% of them are tines up.
Yeah.
I hope so, because I don't even bother making myself think anymore. I just look for straight lines going up. I mean, if I see something that's facing down, I pay attention. But
right.
Which is weird, though, that I wonder why it would be more.
I think just the way that they're shaped, that they typically land and flip, or, that they get to that backside because there's more weight that way.
I remember the first time I saw a video of a deer losing its antlers, I was like, holy crap, because I'll be walking down a trail, and if you find an antler that's laying right off that trail, I was like, oh, he must have dropped it and he was going this way. So I either need to walk this trail out that way or he dropped the other one before, and I need to go back and I'll find it on, if it's anywhere near along that trail. Then I watch the video, and they fling them 10 feet in the air and flip all around and stuff. I'm like,
their head.
You idiot. There's no way that you had any indication of the direction of that deer from how it fell off his head. I guess I was thinking just kind of
fall
plop,
off.
And just fell off.
It bothers them when it gets close enough to like a loose tooth. So you'd see them shaking it off.
I feel like it's got to itch for some reason.
I think there has to be, because I did find multiple fresh rubs, and I know they're fresh because there were shavings on the ground, and we've had snow. So the shavings, and it looked, like...
Shavings were on top of the snow.
Yeah. And, that's odd that it would shred it right now. And the only thing I can think of is he's either still pumped up or just trying to mark his territory or tell other deer he's there, or he's trying to rub his antlers off.
I don't know.
I would like to know how some of them shed that much. Like the one I found the other day had, probably an inch of skull on it with I don't know if it was pus or what it was, some nasty
green
type
matter.
of liquid on it. How I really can't understand how they shed that. I would think that you would think that would remain attached.
Maybe it comes from fighting when they've previously, if they've fracture anything where their pedicle connects, that when it goes to shed, instead of it breaking off at the weak point, it's breaking off at the new weak point where they were
from
fractured.
The skull.
Yeah, fractured something.
That's actually a pretty good theory.
Yeah, but
and that would make sense why there's pus on it already too.
But there's a category. I want to say that the shed guys that do a lot more shed hunting than I do have a category of sheds that have been dropped that are still connected. That a whole piece came off.
Where it's almost a skull cap.
Yeah,
I've seen a couple of those.
And so, but just so that people do realize, it's not a good sign when you find a chunk of when you find the burr and then connected to the burr is pieces of bone, because there gets to be a certain amount of that's too much, and it will actually leave a hole, and then they're going to get infection of their brain, and it kills them. I mean, we had the perfect example of that at the house because I'm positive that deer died. We
The 9.
The very first buck that you found the sheds to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Had a hole like freaking
Yeah,
2,
it was
3
long.
inches off of
Yep.
it. Yeah.
Well, the best way to tell too is if you just go outside and you listen, and you hear a whistle.
And it's
You
a
know,
hole going
you know
through
he's
that
got a
head.
hole and the wind's blowing and it's whistling.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know right where he's at.
Okay, you guys are full of dad jokes today.
I've heard though too that the pedicle, like how smooth it is somewhat of an indicator of how healthy the deer is. Because like sometimes they'll have just a little bit of stuff on there,
Right.
or it'll be kind of rough. But I don't know if there's any truth to that.
I
It
don't
would
know.
seem like that to me, but I don't know.
So what are some other things? So we said that we're going to look for food. We said we're going to look for sign. I mean, it's a double-edged sword here. We talked this about scouting when you're shed hunting, but you got to be careful that when you're scouting, don't think that you're going to see all these deer next bow season in the places where they are. When you have weather like we just had that forced them to leave all this sign in one particular area.
Yep.
You know, but what are some of the things, some of the indicators that you guys are looking for when you're looking for sheds? I mean, are you looking for beds? Are you looking for places where they're feeding, trails, fence crossings, creek crossings? What is it what do you like to hone in on?
South-facing slopes.
Yep.
Anything south-facing and with the least amount of snow on it. And then from that point, if it's not corn or beans or something, then like a hedge apple trees or some kind of natural browse for them. And then I'm looking for a ridiculous amount of sign. And so this is gonna have to take this with a grain of salt for wherever you live.
Right.
But here in Iowa, we have a lot of deer. And so like if that trail isn't pounded to the mud, I'm not spending that much time there. Now, before I would tell you to do that, I was checking all of it. Now is what I'm doing is I want to find a ton of sign where it's not like, oh, there's some deer here. It's like, man, there's been a pile of deer here. And then I want to find a shed. And if I find a shed, now I'm going to spend 90% of my time in that area, meaning everywhere that I still can see that sign, I'm just going to grid that and keep working every inch of that. And then I'll spend the other 10% in everything else trying to find other areas like that or see if I find a fly or two. But now I think that you're way better off spending 3-4 times the amount of time in the spot where you're finding antlers than you are expanding out of that zone.
Yeah. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, it just
When
seems
you
like
find it there.
seems like every time I find an antler or two in an area, there ends up being, if it hasn't been walked, 4 or 5 or 6 that are pretty close there, and that's just because that's where all the deer were.
Yeah. I look for trails, and I just prefer bedding areas because it seems like wherever you find them congregating or bedding, the only thing that goes through my head is how much time would they have spent here. So like when I'm walking certain things, I'm like, oh, that looks really good. If it's something where they're only going to be on like a certain trail for 10, 15 seconds, a minute or something to jump over and get into a cornfield or something, I'm not going to focus as much on it because I want to find where they're there the most, I guess, if that makes sense. So bedding areas and then trails all around the bedding areas that are, like he's saying, that are pounded down, that you can tell lots and lots of deer are using it. That's about all. I mean, I hate fields unless you got a 4-wheeler or something. I don't even find myself walking like fence lines and stuff. I will, and when I'm checking properties and stuff. But as far as like trying to go check a whole cornfield or check a whole alfalfa field, I could care less. I'm gonna go to the bedding and stuff unless it's something easy that I'm walking by or I gotta walk through to get to the truck or something.
Well, I have two things that I look for that I like, and I seem to find more of my sheds there than anything. And that's edges, like an edge of a field and the timber, or edge of a cedar thicket and then the more open timber, or whatever kind of edge you can find. It just seems like that seems to be, like you said, there are more paths crossing through there because it's a natural travel route for them. And so then I find antlers. But then the one, and I cannot explain this one why, but yellow grass. And yellow grass, meaning it's like, there's several different types of CRP type grass. So I'm not going to pick any one particular, but that yellow to brown grass that gets to be, I don't know, 1.5 feet tall, and it's kind of matted down.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but when I find that stuff, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. I'm going to find a shed. And typically I might find one or two or sometimes several, especially if that yellow grass is along the edge of a field. And I don't know if it's a place that they like to bed there or feed there, or I don't know what's causing the antlers to fall there, or it's just easy to see them there.
Yeah.
That is one that I will say. I don't like fields, but I love when we burn because at CRP, it seems like there's always a bunch of sheds in it, and it's a pain in the butt to actually walk it. When you burn it, it's golden.
Well, think about that. I mean, for every time we burnt the 80, how many sheds have we actually found in it?
Maybe 10 total.
And how many times has it been burnt?
Oh, 5 or 6.
Okay,
6
so
times, something like
about
that.
2 per time.
Yeah.
For doing nothing,
And
though.
For
I mean, we got to
50
burn
acres.
I'm explaining how hard it would be to walk CRP.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Knowing that you got 2 sheds out there somewhere.
Yeah.
And trying to find it, even if you do walk by it, seeing it is going to be tough unless it's a big shed.
Right.
Well, that's goes to show that I'm sure somebody walked by it. Blades match set. It was on top of each other. We had walked that piece multiple times. I don't know how specifically anybody walked right where I did there, right on the edge. But when we burned it, I came around the corner of I was just checking to make sure everything was out.
Right.
It was supposed to be out. And I look over, I was like, oh boy, that's a lot of antler because they were stacked on top of each other. And it had burned right by it, picked them up. They're perfect. They're like 2 years old.
Yeah, burning can be a great way to find sheds in CRP, because the other one that I don't like, and you can't burn it, but is a cornfield. I hate cornfields.
Yeah.
Cornfields are just very, very tough. And I've even done the thing where I've found a shed and toss it. I've learned to not toss it very far, because then you can't find it again if you go, because it's just too many lines all sticking the same way. And I don't know if I know that me and you've had this discussion, and I remember you and Dakin found one right on the edge of a cornfield one day. But I don't know that I've ever found one out in a cornfield, like, in the middle of it, or
I have.
Yeah, how much time have you actually spent in it?
I don't spend much time there,
Yeah.
because I've done it on purpose, because looking for a particular shed or something that I knew there's a big deer around here. And so go row by row by row by row by row, especially I've done it with a mule, just driving back and forth. And just for the amount of energy you spend on that amount of time, I don't find them there. I don't know why.
That's a lot of work for a little reward. Because, if you think of a bean field, it's not very often that you look out in a bean field and there's 4 or 5 antlers out in it, maybe 1 or 2.
Right.
And so why would a cornfield be any different? Yeah, I hate cornfields. If I'm going to do a cornfield, there better be a giant deer there, and I'm taking a 4-wheeler or something and going down every row.
Gotcha. All right, what else? I think we should talk about size of antlers a little bit, because that's been our big thing, is we're all in the quest. Easton not so much, but Warren and I have been trying to find an 80-inch shed. And for those of you that live in an area where an 80-inch shed is just not possible, the reason that we set the bar at 80 inches is it is possible. It is. We've killed several deer that have 80-inch sides, but yet we have not been able to pick up an 80-inch shed. We've got several that are 76, 75, 4s. I picked up one the other day, it was 73. But we can't seem to break that. An 80-inch shed is a big, big shed.
Yeah, it's a big, big shed. Well, even mid-70s are big, big sheds.
Yeah.
But I think, and I know Drexel's listening to this. He's been tuning into our stuff, and he's a big shed hunter too. And he's doing the same thing, trying to break the 80 mark. He just found a set this week that the one side is 76 or 77, but it's chewed a little bit, possibly 3 or 4 inches. So it's just for whatever reason, there's just a barrier there with 80. Because Bullwinkle's shed, if he hadn't broke that inside tine on the first one that we have, that would have probably been 80. That only needed to be 4 inches, and it was 80. And I'm pretty sure it was 4 inches. The other side of Ralph, no, not that year. The The other side of Blade
would have been
well over 80.
Well
the other
over
side of Bullwinkle, the second time we found it sheds, would have been closer to 90. How many others? Hammer's other side might have been, it probably would end up like 78, 79, which would have almost been worse. But it was close. So it's just like trying to hit that different number, because we've kind of we've got 76 for whatever reason is like the barrier for us. That's it. We've gotten several at 76, but we can't get them any bigger than that.
What do you consider a good day of shed hunting? How many sheds? I mean, is there a number that you're like, oh, this was, or is it more of a, if you only have an hour to go look, if you find one?
Yesterday was a great day. Alyssa and I walked 3.8 miles and found 11 sheds. That was bonkers for what I'm usually doing.
Right.
So that was a great day. But now if I'd have gone somewhere else and walked 4 miles and found one 70-inch antler, I told you that's also a great day. I'll tell you what day is. 10 miles and no antlers.
And we have those.
Yeah. But I think the more interesting question is, would you rather find an 80 off of a deer or an 80 off a deer you don't know at all? No idea who he is.
I'd rather find a 60 off a deer that I know versus an 80 off a deer I don't know.
That's so weird to me.
No, now wait, whoa. You got to specify. Are we finding this in a place you can hunt?
Sure.
I mean, if you're finding it in a place you can hunt, which would you rather find, a deer you know or a deer you don't know? I'd rather find a deer I don't know, because that adds to my pool.
Yeah.
If
I could find them both, that would be nice. But if I had to pick one, I'm picking the one that I already know.
Yeah.
Even though
you'd rather find a 60-inch.
The reason I'm saying like a 60-inch shed is if it's a deer that I've been paying attention to, that I've known already, I'm gonna want to try to find all the sheds I can from him. If I have one shed from the 80-inch or whatever the deer would end up being, but the 80-inch shed versus 2-3 sets of this other one, or 3-4 years of the other one, I'm taking the other one.
You're off your rocker. You're freaking crazy.
Why do I care that much about an 80-inch shed?
Because it's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. But I'll go shoot him if he's going to be there that much.
Jeez, I'm taking the 80. But I would much rather find 80 to a deer I have no idea who he is.
I only, like,
even somewhere I can't hunt.
That's useless. What is the point in that?
Because
you're crazy.
I like the shed hunting aspect. It's not about killing him for me.
No. Oh, my goodness.
Here's
the reason you haven't found your 80-inch shed is because you want it so bad.
Probably. That's good. It keeps me going.
Another point for manifestation. You should have manifested about 20 of them by now.
I don't know, because I got a buddy that he wants them pretty bad, and he's found 12.
He's manifesting it. You're doing it wrong.
Here's a question I think is really interesting. This is something I don't think any of us would get. What's your favorite antler?
Favorite one that I've ever picked up, or
any of us, all of us, any of our sheds?
Oh, I think probably Ralph.
Ralph.
If the biggest thing is when you find them when they're not chewed, the most intact. The one I found the other day is one of the prettiest antlers that I've ever found, because it was complete. It's a 73-inch shed, but it's perfectly intact. Everything about it is.
Okay, so Ralph.
But Ralph is cool.
How much to sell it?
I don't think that you could give me enough. I mean, I guess there is a price at some point.
$15,000.
Oh yeah, I might sell it for $15,000.
See, I must be psycho.
I'd have no issue selling that antler for $15,000.
Right.
I never killed a deer. If I killed a deer, you ain't buying it.
Right.
But if he ended up somewhere, yeah, here you go.
Like,
I got pictures.
Let's take Hammer's 4-point sight, his big side.
Right.
I've honestly thought about that.
We have an offer already. Someone offered us $6,000 for it.
That antler is worth way more than $6,000
to you.
To me, like I've honestly thought about it, and I think that I would literally, if I had sole ownership over Hammer's antler.
Yeah, we have split custody. It shares on the weekends.
It would literally probably have to be $100K before I would really seriously think about it.
That's how much of a nutcase you are.
Yeah, that is, because like I'm like all these guys that sell them and everything. Like some of these guys, these collectors, I look at their antlers. I'm like, if I found that, I don't care how much money you have. There's no flipping way, no way you could buy it from me, because I can't put a monetary value on that. Like hammers, the 100,000 would just get me to really think about it. And I've honestly thought about that. Like if I had somebody that sat down from across me and they're like, "I'll give you a $20,000 check for that antler," no,
Here you go.
not even thinking about it.
Deal.
I don't know. It just depends on how attached you are to those antlers. You know,
Obviously, I'm pretty attached.
I agree with Easton. There's certain ones that you have more when they come from a deer that you ended up shooting or something like that. You know, like look at straight up whole set. You know, I mean, if they were all intact, if there was some that weren't chewed, it would be really cool. But the fact that we have 5 years of sheds in the deer there is pretty freaking phenomenal. You know.
I just think about it like anything that's a one of one. Like let's take when there's say a Lamborghini. It's probably a terrible comparison, but if they only make one of those, when they're typically selling that Lamborghini for 200 to 400,000, they're probably getting 5 to 10 million for it.
That is a random.
Because they'll never ever be
random number.
No,
you have no idea.
I guarantee
it's just
you,
going to be more.
Okay, anything that's one of
more.
one, would you not say that its
way more
value is going to
expensive.
be a minimum of 10 times more? And why is that?
I have no idea what that number is.
Okay, we'll go do some research on it because I'll bet you it's at least 10 times more.
You just throw numbers out.
No, I do a lot of marketing, so
what
I
kind of
definitely think
research
about
have
that
you
kind of
done on
stuff.
that?
Go look it up. Go do a study and see. I promise you. Go look at one of ones and see the price difference on those, and it's insane.
Yeah, it's significantly more expensive.
Like
But
wild.
we don't know how much. Anyways, go on.
So the
Each
fact that
antler is
somebody
a
would
one of
even
one.
consider selling selling an antler for $5,000 that you will never ever be able to replicate in any way, shape, or form is hard for me to comprehend. Now I get it if you need the $5,000. Like if you really are in a position where you need that $5,000 to feed your family or something, yeah, you should probably sell the antler. But if it doesn't make or break you, I'm not doing it.
I don't have that much attachment to antlers.
Which would you rather find a 80-inch? If you had to pick, would you rather an 80-inch typical or an 80-inch non-typical?
Oh, typical. It's a way bigger antler.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, huh? How is it not?
It just depends on how his points are and stuff like that. So
Yeah, but it could be a 60-inch 5-point with 20 inches of junk.
Yeah, but
Where a typical is going to...
Technically, the number is still there. It's not like it's bigger or not. But a typical, in my opinion, is more impressive.
Well, in order for that deer to get there, he's going to have
Everything's got to
like
be excessively long.
25, 26-inch beams. Eye guards are going to have to be 7, 8, 11, 10,
yeah,
20 en masse.
There's got to be big numbers there to get him there. Big
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah, I'll keep coyote hunting.
So
You might want to consider shed hunting.
That's not doing me any better.
what else? So what else will we tell some people? What about days like types of days for
Well,
shed hunting?
We're running out of time here.
Any available days.
Yeah, any day.
Cloudy, sunny, raining.
I'm going no matter what. But
What do you
Are
prefer?
you about to do a wacky fact?
cloudy.
Right?
Yeah, I don't mind sunny days that much either, though. Because sunny days, I find a lot of antlers that I wouldn't find otherwise because it's because you get a glare on the antlers or something else and it lights them up.
What I don't like is windy days. Windy days make my eyes water.
Yeah.
And then I find that I can't see very well.
What if you just walk with the wind at your back?
Yeah, you can, but you can't do that all the time when you're shed hunting. You're going back and forth.
Yeah. Well, and that probably be more of an issue if you're out in a field or something.
Right.
Where if I really don't, when it comes to the fields, I don't walk them all that much unless I try to glass them.
Agreed.
If I can glass antlers, that's what I would much rather do than try to
What in the
walk every
heck
inch of it.
are you doing?
What?
What's he got now? I have no idea what he's
We're
doing.
going to Judge Warren's wacky facts now because I have a good and a bad button. And they make noises. And I've always said I wanted one of these because he has terrible ones and very good ones. So I'll judge him.
All right. So now
That's
you're
what I ran to get.
now you're like under the gun because you're going to either. Well, we might as well let people know what they sound like.
Oh, no, that's a surprise.
Oh, you're going to wait till he does it. You got
You
this
need
wet?
to do research
Why
before
don't you
the
guys
podcast.
keep talking?
we were talking about types of days, and because he was talking about he doesn't mind sunny or cloudy days. It doesn't matter. I prefer cloudy days, but the one I don't like is windy days because windy days make my eyes water.
Yeah, if it's cold.
Yep, and I can't see real well. And then I don't like snow or rain or anything like that. I like right after a rain because then all the leaves are after the snow
When
melts.
the snow melts, it mats
all
it
down,
too.
so the antlers kind of stick out.
Yeah, it go both ways.
So,
Okay, here's 2.
all right, here we go with today's wacky fact.
The first alarm clock could only ring at 4 a.m. The first alarm clock was invented by Levi Hutchins in 1787. It took 60 years for the French inventor Antonio Ridier to patent an adjustable one.
I wonder why he came up
You
with
would
4
die.
a.m. Yeah. Why did he
don't
do
know.
that?
4 a.m. must have been what time he got up.
Or I wonder why he wouldn't just make, even if he had to make multiple for different times. Like it only does one time, but why could you only get 4 a.m.?
Well, it was a different guy that ended up making an adjustable one. So maybe the original guy died or something, and then nobody else knew how he did it or something, or nobody cared about the alarm clock. That's kind of weird to think about. I guess they just woke up when the sun came up.
That's what roosters were for.
I think that a lot of that was when things started moving and making noise or light came in the window, they knew it was time to get up.
I'd still be dead.
Yeah, you would not.
I need a
be doing well.
mediocre button. That wasn't good or bad.
Here's the second
You got to punch one of them. You got this thing here. And
They didn't get me going. No!
Yeah.
It wasn't good enough for me to really like it.
You gotta put the mic to it. You're gonna do that on anything.
No, you got to do good.
This will make you have a total freak out. There's no such thing as a straight line. No matter how hard you try, if you look closely, there will always be irregularities. We say things are laser focused, but even laser beams are slightly curved.
How do you figure?
Ask the fact people.
No answer.
No such thing as a straight line.
I don't like that. I've heard that theory, but
the dot over the letter I is called a tittle.
That was good.
We can see why people don't say this word too often.
So don't get your tittle in an uproar.
That was good too. All right, that
Make
it.
sure your tittle's in the sentence.
Is that it for today?
Yep.
Well, all right, guys. Well, hopefully that helps you. And we figured this was about as timely as we can get because most everywhere right now, sheds should be dropping other than down in the south, down southeast. You probably don't have sheds hitting the ground yet. So, but most of the rest of the country, Midwest and even back east and stuff like that, sheds should be hitting the ground over the next. I have seen deer, seen them here, seen them in other places carrying as late as Easter and even into April, even into turkey season sometimes. So there's always an exception to the rule. So good luck shed hunting. Thanks for being with us. We appreciate you guys all tuning into the Raised Hunting Podcast.